For almost 20 years, Valérie Bacot endured horrific abuse from her stepfather turned husband. Yes, you heard that correctly. This woman was forced to marry the man who had been raping and torturing her since she was 12 years old. Today, I want to tell you about a case in France that will make you question the lines we draw between victim and criminal. I'm Chris, and this is True Crime Recaps. This story starts in the early 90s when Valérie's mother met a truck driver named Daniel Polette and changed the course of her daughter's life forever. She dated him for about 4 months and admittedly didn't know much about him before asking him to move in with her and her 2 small kids, Valérie and her younger brother. From the start, they were encouraged to call him Daddy. At first, he acted like a doting stepfather, but it wasn't long before he started following 12-year-old Valérie into the bathroom and assaulting her. He was 37 at the time. Her mother turned a blind eye to the obvious signs of abuse, but her abuser's sisters could tell something was going on. When they met their brother's new girlfriend and her kids, they were afraid for Valérie because at one time, they too had been victims of Daniel's perversions. Later, they described horrific violence growing up with him. Times when they had to wipe blood off the walls after he beat them, their brothers and father. Daniel raped them at knife point and threatened their lives if they told anyone. His brother described him as an evil monster who kept their family in fear for their lives for years. But as adults, they wanted to stop the cycle of abuse. When she was 15, Daniel's sisters turned him in for raping Valérie, and he spent a couple of years in jail. That should be where the story stops, but Valérie's mother made her visit the man in jail. His siblings were shocked. She brought her own daughter to prison to see the man who raped her. As they said in court, this woman does not understand anything. Later, she claimed her daughter wanted to see him. Plus, she was able to complete her hours of accompanied driving to get her license, according to a report by Le Monde. Was she thinking like a mother or like a jealous rival? She said she's not jealous by nature, and she's not maternal by nature either. When Daniel was released, he came home to her house. In Valérie's memoir titled Everyone Knew, she writes, "Nobody seemed to find it bizarre that Daniel came back to live with us as if nothing had happened." Her mother claims, "He needed a base. We gave him a second chance, which maybe wasn't normal." And the rapes started up again. She thought about running away all the time, but where? She figured her grandparents would just send her back to her mother, and her father didn't want her. She had no one, so she stayed. At the age of 17, Daniel got her pregnant. When her mother discovered her secret, she kicked her out and Daniel along with her. Later, she said she thought the two of them were in a romantic relationship, although she confessed it was clear that Daniel had some kind of psychological hold on Valérie. In 1998, she signed off on an order of emancipation, washing her hands of her daughter and her former boyfriend. When their child, a son, was born, the beatings started. She said the first time it was because he thought I hadn't put the baby's toys away properly, but very quickly it became commonplace. If the coffee took too long to arrive, it was too hot or too cold, he would get angry. Over the next few years, she gave birth to 3 more children, and the abuse got even worse. In her words, at first it was slaps, then kicks, punches, and he would strangle me. Everything became a pretext for blows. You live with the idea that you deserve it because you're not doing things right. Daniel controlled every part of her life. He wanted to own her. He decided how her hair should look and what clothes she should wear. He even named all 4 of their kids. And when she asked him for birth control so she wouldn't get pregnant again, he refused. She wasn't even allowed to go to the doctor without him. In fact, she wasn't allowed to go out of the house except to go to the supermarket or take the kids to school. And when she returned, she better have receipts with her to prove she was where she said she was. Then it got worse. He started trafficking her to other truck drivers. If she refused, he threatened to kill their 4 children. In her book, she wrote, "Fear froze my brain when I learned I would have to prostitute myself. Daniel owns me completely. I am an object that belongs to him. He can do whatever he wants with me. One day, he will kill me. It is written that way. I have known that ever since I was a kid, since my mother opened the doors wide before him. For years, he made her have sex with clients in the family's Peugeot minivan while he watched through a hole in the door and gave her instructions through an earpiece. In 2008, when she was 27 and he was 52, he forced her to marry him with threats against her life and the kids. She couldn't escape his constant surveillance, but her children had a little more freedom, so she asked her son and her daughter's boyfriend to go to the police and ask for help. They knew what their father was doing to her. They'd even found his business cards with the words "escort girl" in bold print. But all they got from the police was red tape and shrugs. It wasn't their jurisdiction, one of the officers told them. When they tried again, another said that Valérie would have to file a complaint in person. After that, Valérie wrote in her book, "We decided not to do anything, to give up the fight. No one was ready to listen. For us, there was no exit. All was lost." If he'd known his family tried to turn him in, Daniel may have killed him on the spot. As it was, his abuse got worse. He stopped using his fists and started using hammers and guns to beat and threaten her with. She remembered being beaten unconscious with a hammer one Christmas. Every day, she wondered if it would be her last. Then she noticed he was taking an unusual interest in their daughter. He was asking her disturbing questions about her relationship with her boyfriend, wondering if they were having sex, if she ever slept with anybody else. In court, Valérie testified, "Then I became very afraid that he would pimp her out. I knew that the more she would grow up, the more he would hurt her, and I did not know what to do." The terrible situation was headed towards a breaking point. Him or her. Then on March 13th, 2016, she was brutally raped by a truck driver Daniel had sold her to after she refused to do what he wanted. Her husband beat her for it, saying she'd lost them a customer and would have to make it up some other way. She endured 25 years of abuse. She couldn't take one more day of it. She shot him dead in the back of the head with a gun he kept between the sheets. With the help of her two oldest sons and her daughter's boyfriend, she buried his body in the woods. But a year later, the boyfriend let the story slip to his mother, who called the police. Valérie confessed and was arrested in 2017. In her book, she wrote, "I simply wanted to protect myself, protect my life, the life of my children. In my eyes, nothing else ever mattered. I'm not only a victim, I killed him. It's only normal that I should be punished. But if my sentence is heavy, that will mean to me that he had the right to behave the way he behaved with me." She faced life in prison, but her story generated global empathy and close to 1 million signatures on a petition for leniency. So why didn't she just leave? Why not find another solution? As her mother testified, she should have. In the words of the court-appointed psychiatrist, the extreme abuse and PTSD she suffered for 25 years altered her judgment. She acted under the absolute certainty that killing him was the only way to protect her kids. In June 2021, she went to trial, and in a surprise twist, the prosecutor decided to give her a chance at a real life. He acknowledged that her children needed her and she wasn't a danger to others. But justice had to be seen to be done, so she was sentenced to 4 years with time served. When she learned she would be walking out of the courtroom a free woman, Valérie fainted with shock and relief. When she came to, she had this to say, "I am not relieved, but just emptied mentally and physically. But now we have a chance to overcome everything, to be like all of you." As for the mother that didn't put a stop to her daughter's abuse, Valérie filed a complaint against her for complicity in rape by omission. And that's your recap. I'm curious to know what you think about this case. Was justice served? Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. If you like getting all of the crime in half the time, it would mean so much to us if you would give this a thumbs up and remember to subscribe and hit the bell so you never ever miss a new recap. Until next time, take care.